The big news story around the world over the last few days has been the chaos in the wake of the elections in Venezuela. I felt it necessary to make this video, however the relevance of some of the details might change as the week goes on. For the last 20 years or so, Venezuela has been under what amounts to practically a socialist dictatorship. First under the rule of the late Hugo Chavez, and then for the last 12 years under the heel of his anointed successor Nicolas Maduro. Chavez was the colourful leading figure in what was known as the left wave, which swept across Latin America in the early 2000s and was made up of many socialist and left-leaning governments in almost every Latin American country. Lula in Brazil, Evo Morales in Bolivia, Rafael Correa in Ecuador, to name just a few. And here in Argentina, some of Chavez's most ardent supporters, Nestor and Cristina Kirchner. Those days are long gone, and with the passing of Chavez, Nicolas Maduro came to power in Venezuela, and the country descended into a chaos of corruption, hyperinflation, and all the usual things one would expect from a dictatorship on the political left or right. Since the rise of Maduro, huge amounts of people have fled Venezuela. Some 8 million, mostly young people, have left the country, which is almost a quarter of the population. An estimated 220,000 settled in Argentina. Many of these refugees came here very young and have spent more of their lives in Argentina than in Venezuela. Running up to Sunday's election, opinion polls put the opposition candidate, Edmundo Gonzalez, firmly ahead with as much as 70% of the vote, and exit polls only confirmed this. The mood amongst Venezuelans both in and outside of the country was one of joyful expectation for the end of Maduro and an opportunity for the exiles to go home. Here in Argentina, exiles gathered outside the Venezuelan embassy to await the result, and were joined for a while by members of the Argentine government, Foreign Minister Diana Mondino and Security Minister Patricia Bullrich. President Milei is currently in Europe for the opening of the Olympic Games and hasn't publicly commented yet. However, the contempt with which Maduro and Milei hold each other is well documented, and they have regularly hurled abuse at each other in the past. As voting closed in Venezuela, rumours of fraud and intimidation began to circulate. Finally came the announcement that Maduro had won the election with just over 51% of the vote. I don't think this was a great surprise to anyone. My biggest surprise was discovering that they actually still have elections in Venezuela. The mood outside the Venezuelan embassy in Buenos Aires turned ugly, with people throwing stones. Meanwhile in Caracas, things just exploded. Over the past few days, there have been riots in the streets and fighting with the police and army, who remain loyal to Maduro due to the leadership being deeply embedded within state corruption. By Tuesday, rioters across the country were pulling down statues of Hugo Chavez, and at the time of recording, at least 11 people are dead and many arrested. Countries across the world have condemned Sunday's election results as fraudulent, and demands are growing for Maduro to step down. Whether he'll manage to cling on to power remains to be seen. When Nicolas Maduro first came to power 12 years ago, refugees from Venezuela flooded out across Latin America. A large number made it all the way to Argentina. It became common to hear Venezuelan accents amongst waiters in cafes and restaurants. Many of these young people are well educated, and I sometimes found myself having conversations in fluent English with people stacking shelves in supermarkets. Contrary to the way much of the Western media likes to represent refugees, the people who escape from unstable countries are rarely the dregs of society, but more often than not the well-educated middle classes who have lost or abandoned everything trying to flee. While North America and Europe push back against what they pejoratively call migrants, Argentina sees potential in these people and welcomes them in. While living here, I've seen Syrians and Venezuelans arrive, more recently Russians and Ukrainians, and I imagine quite soon there may be a flow of Palestinians coming seeking shelter. Many arrivals do menial jobs in service industries or start small businesses. There's a proliferation of Syrian-run kebab shops, and taxi drivers and bicycle delivery workers are often foreign-born. The often well-educated move into the tech sector, while those with the correct skills become medical workers and even doctors. Some, especially the Russians, seem to have independent incomes and have a much better life in Argentina than back home. Argentina has a long tradition of welcoming all kinds of immigrants, and a large part of the population are themselves descendants of refugees. This perhaps goes a long way towards explaining the positive attitude that people usually have towards foreign residents. Many people I meet have ancestors who fled some war or disaster. Part of the large Jewish community here are descended from Holocaust survivors. There are Russian descendants of exiles from the Bolsheviks, those whose forefathers fled Franco's Spain or Mussolini's Italy, and a certain amount of blonde, blue-eyed people with Germanic names who would rather not talk about where their grandparents arrived from. Thanks for watching. I hope you found the video interesting. If you did, please give it a like, and if you're not already subscribed, you might want to do that too. If you want to support the channel, you can buy me a coffee in the link below, and until next time, que tengas un buen día.